Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Harry, for this opportunity. It's great to be here. I hope I hope that the audio will be fine from now on. And thanks everyone for being here. My name is Will Clements. I'm working for MECS. So taking over from Anna last week. And this week, what we're looking at is a deep dive on eCooking and mini-grids. And it's also really great to have Alison and Prosper with us from EarthSpark International and Power Hub Renewables Limited, respectively. Really great to be with us. So welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing from you both on your experiences of eCooking in mini-grid contexts. So I will kick off now. Just a little bit of a recap on MECS, on the MECS program. So MECS is a UK aid program, and it's looking at enabling adoption of modern cooking, and with a particular focus on eCooking. And the reason for that is, eCooking has that sort of special place where it can provide that improved experience for cooks and it's been shown many now that electricity is the cheapest mode of cooking in many countries. So it can provide that cheap and convenient mode of cooking for the people, and at the same time, it's a way of increasing electricity demand, which is a big win for utilities. So we're seeing that as a real big win-win, that mutual support between electrification and cooking. So that's why the MECS program is sort of having that special focus on eCooking. And so moving on to just a little bit more about eCooking. As I've said, there's been a lot of research done over I'm sure that lots of you have seen these kind of devices before. There are now these very efficient electric cooking appliances, things like electric pressure cookers, induction hobs, and so on. Cooking with these appliances is convenient, obviously clean, and therefore those health impacts, and saves time and money in many contexts. So just to whiz on to a bit of a recap of last week, Anna introduced the topic of mini-grids. The World Bank estimates that nearly 500 million people will be reached through mini-grids. So, mini-grids are a hugely important aspect of energy access. A challenge has been that the load factor in mini-grids, the consumption of electricity, has often been relatively low, and therefore a relatively high tariff has been required, which can be difficult to pay. That kind of enduring challenge, where eCooking can be incredibly powerful and transformative, coming in and providing a fantastic cooking experience for the cooks, but also increasing demand, and part of that demand stimulation. I was reading a blog today on the African Energy Portal about mini-grids in Kenya, just to say a little bit more, and about how transformative mini-grids are in general. It said that a recent study by the Kenya Renewable Energy Association found that household incomes increased by an average of 27% within the first year of mini-grid connection, primarily through extended business hours and new economic activities. So, mini-grids are a really important facet of energy access. So to move on to a little bit more, MECS has been researching mini-grids and looking at eCooking for quite a number of years. But what I'm really going to focus on today is the Cosmo Challenge Fund, so cooking support on mini-grids. And this was a challenge fund that started in 2022, and I'm going to be talking about phase 1. So before I explain a bit more about exactly what Cosmo is, I'm going to give you the overall takeaway. And the overall takeaway that we found from phase 1 was that eCooking is feasible and cost-effective in many mini-grids, in many contexts. And it can enable cost savings for consumers and also for mini-grid developers, increased profitability for mini-grid developers. And those kind of profitability benefits are particularly evident when eCooking is planned for from the very beginning, when it is integrated into planning for mini-grids from the very beginning. And we'll be talking more about that as well. So what is Cosmo? Cosmo Phase 1 supported 7 projects across 7 different countries to develop business plans for integrating eCooking into mini-grids. Those projects included technical and financial modeling, so load profiles, system sizing of solar and battery, cash flows, payback periods, all those kind of things. And it was looking at a variety of mini-grids, mostly solar, with 1 micro hydropower mini-grid, but also some standalone communities, some standalone mini-grids, and some portfolios, some already existing mini-grids, and some mostly sort of in planning, new build, planned mini-grids. And the methods that the developers used for this were a range of things, some in the communities themselves, so surveys, interviews, focus groups, even trialing e-cookers, and of course a lot of modeling, technical and financial. I won't be able to do justice to all of this in this presentation, so please do see the Cosmo
éléments que je vous
report at that link there. So we'll share these slides and you can see the
Donc, nous allons vous partager le lien que
Sorry,
vous
I'm
voyez
starting
là.
to hear the translation again. I don't know if that's just
Okay.
me, but
Okay, that's noted.
thank you.
Sorry.
So just to kick off a bit on Cosmo, this is a nice graphic from one of the studies. And if we zoom in on that graph in the middle there, what a lot of these projects were talking about was trying to how eCooking could make use of solar power generation in the middle of the day and in the afternoon, and really make use of that energy, and how that could be a really transformative way of integrating eCooking. So what were the technical findings from Phase 1? Well, they were that it is context specific, but we can definitely draw some important findings sort of across the board, things that we can learn from. And the first one that I've sort of touched on already is something that was sort of clear from Project 1, which was a solar mini grid portfolio, mostly unbuilt, new build, planned. And this finding was adding eCooking to existing mini grids can appear challenging due to having to upgrade the mini grid, the solar and the battery and everything, so on. But integrating eCooking into planning from the very beginning can greatly improve the business case, because much of the system infrastructure, the solar, the battery, the network, and therefore CapEx, is required with or without eCooking, whether eCooking is planned for or not. So that was really one of the key findings of Cosmo Phase 1. And a graph that a series of graphs that illustrate this are here. So this is the project 1 with no eCooking. This is cash flows, and so it looks reasonable. Within about 9 years, it's paid off. The initial investment of about $1 million is then paid off from energy sales after about 9 years. But when eCooking is planned and integrated from the start, that initial investment was only 300,000 extra, so up to $1.8 million for this portfolio of mini grids. But payback is reached after only 4 years. So those vastly increased energy sales from eCooking can really outweigh those increased capacity requirements and enable profitability relatively quickly. So that was a really important finding, and this just illustrates, overlaying those two graphs, illustrating the vast difference in revenue following the introduction of eCooking. Those cash flows, that gradient of the eCooking included graph. So that was something really important. then to look at another key lesson. So project 4 was a small solar mini grid, an existing system, and what it showed was it is more difficult to upgrade an existing mini grid to accommodate eCooking due to having to upgrade the solar, the battery, and that capex required compared to integrating it into original planning. However, it is still possible to generate a higher net present value over a sustained period. So in this project, there was an increase in the payback period from 4 years to 9 years due to that higher capex of the upgrades, and obviously, 0 in the baseline scenario because it already exists. But within 2 years of operation beyond that payback period with eCooking, there was a 3-fold increase in the net present value in the modeling. And that shows that eCooking can vastly increase profitability in the longer term. It's also worth keeping in mind that mini-grids that are already in operation will require infrastructure upgrades or component replacements anyway at some point, right, due to load growth or exhausted lifespans. And at that point, integrating eCooking becomes more like integrating it into initial planning. And also just worth saying here that, those increased energy sales from eCooking could mean that reducing the tariff is possible. Reducing a relatively high tariff might be possible. This is just an example of the kind of modeling that we were seeing in these studies. This is a nice example of interesting assumptions of morning cooking, afternoon cooking, evening cooking, looking at energy requirements and quite efficient cooking sessions here. And more details in the report. And so now this here, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but this is a summary that you can find in the report of all of the technical modeling across those 7 studies. And the key thing to say here is, it's context specific, so there's a lot of variation, but obviously eCooking increases demand, and that's really important. And then the upgrades required to solar and battery, they vary depending on what's going on, on the cooking penetration, on the modeling, on the assumptions, all that kind of stuff. So for example, in the first project that we showed the graph for, there was this massive increase in demand due to integrating eCooking. And relatively, the upgrades to solar and battery, 30%, 20%, were relatively low. Whereas a project like Project 6, the upgrades were 100% and 70%, so much higher. But obviously, eCooking does increase demand, and that we can show through a summary of the financial modeling. That increase in demand leads to an increase in revenue, and that's really, really important. So yeah, that increase in revenue varies from modest to significant. Sometimes the payback period decreases, sometimes it increases, but there is always that increase in revenue from eCooking, and generally enables increased net present value or internal rate of return eventually. So usually at some point you start to make more money from eCooking, from electricity sales, than you have spent on building or upgrading the grid. So that's a sort of summary. You can see the report for more on those financials. Just to say a little bit about one of those cases that I mentioned, where the upgrade requirements were really high. This project 6 was looking at a small solar mini grid, and I think some of their assumptions and their modeling sort of misrepresent the actual feasibility a little bit. So first of all, they're talking about basically integrating eCooking in every household at the beginning. But more importantly than that, their modeling assumptions. For example, they were looking at their modeling showed continuous eCooking of about 4 hours, which is not realistic for the kind of efficient appliances that we have now. They're not on at high power all the time, and they wouldn't take that long to cook. And also, people don't cook at the same time, so there is diversity in timings of cooking. And what that is that the overall, as it as a theoretical maximum, as if you add them all up. Let me say a little bit more about that now. Modeling and assumptions. So yeah, electric pressure cookers, efficient e-cooking appliances, we're finding them to be really suitable for mini grids, for contexts where the energy supply is limited or where the power supply is limited. And the reason for that, there's a short preheat period with an EPC where it's consuming full power, or 1 kilowatt or whatever. And then once it reaches pressure, once it reaches that cooking phase, it doesn't need to be on all the time. It only needs to come on and pulse power to maintain the pressure. And it doesn't need to do that too often. So the energy used is relatively low, and the amount of time that it's on at rated power is also low. And therefore, if you've got lots of people using EPCs, then they're not going to be all on at the same time because of that diversity and because of that short period of high power. So we did see in the studies that quite a few of the models were using hourly resolution, and some were assuming high cooking coincidence across the cookers in their modeling. So they're assuming that most of them were on at the same time. But that may well not be the case. Higher resolution modeling could help to look at that, more on minute basis, 5 minutes, or more sort of assumptions around averages rather than assuming that every cooker is on at the same time. And that also plays into peak demand, which is obviously really important for mini grids. What happens to the peak demand when you integrate e-cooking? And one of the studies had a look at that and showed how important modeling is when you're thinking about this. And this study here, so there's different colors, there's different colored lines, there's different scenarios of different amounts of coincidence of the cookers being on. So with the lower down peaks, they're assuming not a lower number of cookers being on in a certain interval, but with the highest peaks they're assuming that every cooker is on at the same time. It shows that there's a huge difference there, and so it really matters what's going on with that and with what kind of assumptions you make. I'm going to stop relatively soon, but another really important factor to talk about is demand side management and daytime cooking. So lots of the studies were talking about this, and a number of them also tested or tried to test whether there would be willingness for people in communities to shift any of their cooking from either the morning or the evening a bit more into the middle of the day to coincide with peak solar installation. And a number of them said that there was a level of willingness. There was while others were saying that other respondents to surveys and things were saying that would be inconvenient. Something that we would love to see explore more and hear about more would be things like time of use tariffs to encourage people to schedule their e-cooking during the middle of the day, reducing that reliance on the battery in the evening. And of course, saving customers money in terms of that reduced tariff for e-cooking. And other demand side management measures could be really important as well. And just to say, fuel stacking is something that is always very likely to happen. That's what we've seen in a lot of research over the years. People generally want to keep using their previous stoves to some degree, whether it's as backup or whether it's alongside an e-cooking appliance, gas, firewood, charcoal, and so on. And maybe they would need to do so on days where the solar installation wasn't strong enough, or if they needed to cook in the evening and unable to shift. So these kind of things are really important to think about and discuss. But even if people are fuel stacking and reverting to their previous stoves at times, it doesn't mean there aren't benefits. There are still benefits to their cooking experience, to their health. There are still benefits to the grid in terms of increasing the load by adding e-cooking. So those were sort of the key technical findings from Cosmo Phase 1. I've got more in here on the non-technical findings. I'm just going to talk about one, which was that we did find that in lots of the projects, people in communities were paying for cooking fuel. They were paying for charcoal or firewood or gas. And often they were paying quite a lot because of the remoteness of a community. And therefore, they have this transferable expenditure, which could be moved towards, or somewhat moved towards e-cooking. And so, there is a perception that in most mini-grid communities, people don't pay for fuel and they're just collecting it. Of course, that's true of some, but there were many in our cohort where people were paying for fuel. I'm going to skip through the rest. We've got another webinar in a few weeks' time, I think, on financing, which is also really important. Just to go to the conclusions and say, e-cooking increases demand and therefore revenue. And sometimes that makes the whole mini-grid system much more viable in terms of finances. Exploring demand-side management and things like time of use tariffs is really important. And e-cooking doesn't have to be the primary cooking fuel, doesn't have to be the only thing that people cook with to improve quality of life. So I'm going to stop there. I would like to invite Alison to, I'll stop sharing my screen. I would love to invite Alison to give us her presentation. So Alison is representing EarthSpark, and excuse me. Good, I've stopped. Hopefully you have sharing rights, Alison.
I believe I do.
Great.
I do. Let's see.
So Alison is representing EarthSpark, and EarthSpark are one of the Cosmo Phase 2 awardees. So thanks for being here, Alison, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Will, and everyone who's worked to put this together. Can you all hear me? Can I get a thumbs up from Will?
I can.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. First of all, deep appreciation to the MECS team and everyone working in this concerted way to bring this solution to the world. I think I'm gonna share a few big ideas. One, I think the audience is on board with this, but let me say that mini grids are useful. Okay, mini grids are useful to build to solve SDG 7. They're important. They're also really hard and expensive. Okay, so with those two things being true, e-cooking brings this world of additional benefits both to the customers and to the business model. And I think it's really important that, honestly, until the MECS team came, it was like there was electricity access and everybody was thinking, okay, if people can get a light bulb and some phone charging and let's get some productive use electricity for the mills in town, we'll call that good. And then there was clean cooking, and it was like very distinct and separate. And it sort of ignored the fact that people have multiple energy needs, right? And SDG 7 is supposed to address those energy needs. And clean cooking and electricity access had largely been siloed. And it's better when they work together. It's not a slam dunk, we have everything solved yet, but it certainly, I'm going to build off what Will said, is that there's an exciting path forward where this not only benefits the business model of making it more possible to viably build electricity systems for communities, it also actually meets people's energy needs in a more complete way.
Excuse me, Alison.
Yes?
Yes. Could you put your screen with full screen mode, please? The slide.
Is it not in full screen? I'm sorry. One moment.
We are with dual.
Use slideshow. Is this going to work? Let me see.
Not yet.
Not yet for me either. I've lost everyone. I hope you can still hear me. Does that work?
Yes, this works.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Okay. So just a little bit about EarthSpark. We build mini grids in Haiti. We currently have only 2 operational, but we turned our first town-sized solar-powered smart grid on in rural Haiti in 2015. So we now have 10 years of solar mini grid operation experience, and we are planning another 22 grids. So this integrating the eCooking into the planning phase is extremely important. We're actually in the procure and build phase for the next 6 right now, which is very exciting. And we are actively incorporating electric cooking planning into our grid designs. I'm going to try something and we'll see how it goes. This is a 2-minute video that we made about our MECS initial electric cooking pilot. I'm going to click on this and see how it goes. It's just 2 minutes, but it brings the actual voice of the people to the webinar, which I find very important.
Et vous mettez sous niveau, vous mettez là, vous mettez sorti, vous faites tout ça, vous avez besoin, il va brûler, il va faire la fumée, il va faire chaleur. Mais moment qu'on y a, nous plus appris c'est courant parce que nous avons plus l'avantage de nous dedans. Manger à plus rapide. Nous pas la fumée, mais le cas de l'église. Mais le l'église qui vous collectez le revenir sous temps en vol là, et que vous collectez sous vol là, et que vous avez dit, nous pas de problème pour ça. Ça c'est pour vous avantage que nous jouons ensemble avec. Manger malaise, et manger toujours bien cuit, et au bien bon goût, ne pas de la fumée. Oui, vous pouvez manger, c'est notre tradition ici. Le matin, on coupe banane sur lui, on fait petite sauce ou bien si sauce spaghetti m'a fait avant le travail, on met en frère sur lui et puis tout. L'aime terminer ou bien si on n'a pas moins, on doit continuer à faire manger pour journée ou après-midi. Oui, même genre on fait. On va qui va aller de l'eau pour mettre petit. On va qui va aller de l'eau pour mettre petit. Mais c'est ça et là pour faire solide. Pour pas quitter l'empire, au moment où nous avons banane, nous avons la guerre, mais pour nous, on fait on baisse. Comment me sentir, comment manger à qui façon manger à ce chose là? Eh bien, façon qui presque même façon dans le chaud parce qu'il faut quitter le chaud après ça pour fuir et puis sous pour quitter le bruit mais simplement plus rapide que le charbon. Par exemple, nous faisons l'âme, bien l'âme, nous banane, nous patates, nous petits huiles, nous maïmouli, avec toujours aussi.
All right, so sorry that last thing popped up at the end, but can I get you all back to my, okay. I don't know, were you able to hear that? I hope you were. I just love, my favorid part is the person who's like, we just plug it in and then we go to church. Oops, sorry. Hold on.
Et vous faites mettre sous niveau, vous mettez là, vous mettez sorti, vous faites tout ça, vous avez besoin, il va brûler.
Okay. All right. Now I got to go back in my, okay. So what we found is that people love electric cooking. We also learned some things, and I'll come back to this thesis here, but electric cooking in a microgrid, it's one part technology, and that's, you know, what the actual cookers are, but it's also the grid and how things are supported. It's one part finance and business model. Can the money make sense while not charging people more than what they're already paying for charcoal? That's one of our tenets, is to not charge people more, even though the service is more desirable, arguably. 3, it's legal and regulatory. If you're going to do time of use pricing, are you allowed to do time of use pricing? How does it all work, right, from a legal and regulatory standpoint? And 4, the anthropology of electricity offerings. What do people want? How do they want to participate in this new power system that's getting built in their community? And, each one of those is the topic of a whole semester seminar, because we're all collectively working through answering all of the points for each of these 4 topics. But just very quickly, what we found, we were like participant number 2 in Will's slides. People loved electric cooking, and also they wanted bigger things. And what we found was that it had this huge potential to be the killer app of mini grid design and operations that also delivered very important benefits to our customers. And so, as Will was saying, and I'll share that we work in a place where diesel is very difficult to get. So my first 2 grids had been designed to operate with some diesel as like a 3 to 5% sort of backup power source. However, in rural Haiti, with a lot of insecurity and gangs taking over the fuel terminals, diesel's just been impossible to get for months at a time. And thus, all of my future grids will be 100% solar plus storage grids, which either means we have to wildly overbuild the solar. If we want reliable, 100% reliable grids, we either need to really overbuild the solar, which makes CapEx costs go up, or we need to accept outages on some days when we don't have enough energy. That's not acceptable from a regulatory or a customer service perspective. Or we need to find some load that is a bit of a sponge, right? That is usually there, but can be deferred. And that's where Will was talking about fuel stacking. Let's talk about the financing of this right now. Right now, we're building a $46 million project for 22 new grids. And a lot of my work over the last 10 years has been talking about how we're crowding in the private sector. But in all honesty, the private sector is a tiny fraction of the overall capital stack here. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, can we tap into carbon markets? Can we do something even more boutique, I guess, but much more impactful, which would be a carbon and gender market where we have credits based on the benefits that we're delivering in these communities. And, of course, carbon for clean cooking is not new. I found this article from 2014 about how carbon finance was going to solve everything. It hasn't. But there are some things about electric cooking that make it easier to monitor and a little bit more reliable in terms of what we think a third-party validation can look like. I will say for the carbon plus gender, EarthSpark brings this feminist electrification lens to the work we do in mini grid development. And it's basically authentically including women in all aspects of what we do. When we build new power systems, we have an opportunity to explicitly say, these new power systems are places where men and women participate equally. So that's everything from workforce development, community engagement, governance. Adding cooking to this message is very powerful and brings in the carbon piece, but very much brings the, we were clear to include one of the participants who was in our initial pilot, who was a man, but most of the customers who are cooking with these new appliances are women. So can we bring results-based financing into this capital stack in a way that makes these grids more financeable, that makes the economics better? You saw that the payback period in some of Will's slides does improve. Well, if that's true, we should be able to build more robust grids and attract more debt for these grids in a way that makes the whole package more viable. And so I think when I was first talking about building grids that can support electric cooking, I had a lot of folks sort of pat me on the head and say, do you have any idea how much energy that would require? And the answer is yes, of course. And that's sort of the point. It requires more robust grids with bigger infrastructure. And that is sort of a virtuous cycle, because then you do have bigger, more robust grids to serve people's energy needs. So this little piece, we called it Femelec Finance. If we can bring this carbon and gender revenue into the overall package, then the whole pie grows in a way that makes the economics just a lot more attractive, and makes it easier to achieve one of the major barriers in microgrid development, which is financing. On the technical side, I mentioned that we're 100% solar plus storage for everything that we're building moving forward in Haiti. And if you see here, this is a screenshot of an energy balance of one of our existing grids. We're charging the batteries here. Basically, this is the place where the batteries are topped off and we have excess solar capacity. So basically, we're spilling sunshine in the middle of the day on each of these days. Now, note, it's not every day. Look, it wasn't here. It's very briefly here. So in the middle, and this is a grid that we built for diesel, right? So this is not 100% solar plus storage, but as we build 100% solar plus storage, we will have more solar. And these flat places will be more pronounced under sort of non-eCooking environment operations. This is a look at one of our inputs to a financial model where we've basically bulked up the middle of the day. This gray, dark gray sort of mountain in the middle is electric cooking. And you see then the load profile really more beautifully and elegantly matches the way that the solar energy would be present coming into our system. Recently, we did a partnership with some graduate students that helped us have a look at how much actual load curtailment we would need to do to not suffer on the basically not lose reliability for our grid and not pay too much more, right? So the exciting point here is if you look on the chart on the right, look at day 9. These are electric cooking off days, right? So a day ahead, we would forecast saying, hey, tomorrow, and these are sort of really rough terms, but to all the electric cookers or the ones who have signed up for the demand management program, tomorrow is not an electric cooking day. And so that's where folks, have alternatives. We would only have to do that 9 days out of the year in order to basically not change any reliability for our grid. And for 6% more, if you look on the left, we have 20% uptake of electric cooking. And at 9 days, that's only an additional 6% of capital expenditure to meet those people's needs for all of the other days of the year and to serve the full other loads reliably on the grid. So this 6% and this 9 days, I think was very exciting. Broader conclusions, we could get up to 50% adoption rates. And still at the 9 days, we're doing, basically we only need to curtail for 9 days. It does cost more, but up to 50%, we can see that it pays for itself. And so we can add this huge additional energy service with beneficial business model implications. That's the end of my presentation. I look forward to hearing from the Prosper team.
Yes, thank you very much, Alison. That was brilliant. That was fascinating. Great. So Prosper, if you're able to share your screen and present, that would be brilliant. Prosper is representing Power Hut Renewables Limited. So welcome, Prosper.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Let me quickly share my screen. Will, can you confirm whether you can see my screen?
Yes, we can. If you just click full screen. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so thank you so much for all the organizers, and in particular Dr. Will for also letting us to be part of today's webinar, and in particular the valuable subject of electric cooking in mini grids. And thank you so much, Dr. Will, for your introduction of all the report of phase 1. And I'm here just to share the experience of PowerHat Renewables in integrating electric cooking in our portfolio of mini grids. All right, so just a brief on some key electricity statistics in Tanzania for those who are not aware of them. So Tanzania is a country of about 62 million people. And currently the electricity access is standing at around 78%, with a connectivity of 46%. So we have a lot to do to connect more people. And of about 4 gigawatt of our electricity installed capacity, 67% of that comes from hydro. So we are doing good in integrating renewables in our electricity generation. So PowerHat, a brief about PowerHat, is a local, a Tanzanian company established in 2015. It started as PowerGen Renewables, PowerGen Renewable Energy Limited, and we changed the name in 2023 after PowerGen left Tanzania. So we acquired the assets of PowerGen in Tanzania. I believe most of the people attending the webinar are aware of PowerGen. So briefly, this is a list of the sites that we currently operate. They are relatively small size in capacity. So we are currently operating 8 sites, connecting about 1,600 people. And all these sites are islands in Lake Victoria. So we are one of the companies implementing the Cosmos Challenge Fund Phase 2. And the objective is to distribute about 500 electric cookers in our portfolio of mini grids. And we will be collecting data on usage of the electric cookers, as well as raising awareness and training on e-cooking. So where we stand today, already about 200 EPCs have been distributed, and we've already started collecting data of about 100 users. So we are quite happy that about half of the EPCs we've been able to distribute, we can now have, or we can now assess the collected information. So this is a pressure cooker that we are using. It's made by PowerUp. So it is the only type of pressure cooker that we distribute across the mini grid portfolio. The beauty of it is, as already explained by Dr. Will, how the pressure cooker work to generate pressure, and then you only use electricity to generate that pressure, and most of the cooking is actually being done by the generated pressure. So we only wanted to share some collected information from one of the users. So this is the information collected on different cookings in March this year. So this are typically Tanzanian or African dishes, as you can see, and the amount which was cooked, the time of the cooking, the energy consumed, and also the duration of the cooking. And from the collected data, you will see we generated this graph, and you will see that the type of dish which took a lot of energy is actually boiling beans, which consumed about 0.6 kilowatt, 0.7 kilowatt hours, followed by frying fish together with cooking ugali at the same time. So in different ways, or in different type of dishes, and also in different days, boiling beans topped the energy consumption of all the type of dishes that were cooked. Meaning, when we are considering to integrate electric cooking in our mini grids, we really need to look at the type of the dishes that are going to be cooked, and in particular the local or African dishes. Most of the time, they can take a lot of energy, but thanks to EPCs, you will see here that the maximum that was consumed is about 0.7 kilowatt hours. And this is just to show the duration of the cooking. So you will find also the cooking that took maximum energy also took a bit of a time to prepare. So this graph just shows the duration of the cooking per each type of dish. So after we have been collecting this information has been instrumental now for our next steps. So we look forward to upgrade the existing system, and thanks to this MECS supported project, we have been able now to integrate electric cooking in the planning of the upgrades. So we currently clearly understand how we're gonna integrate the eCooking. We've done all the designs, and actually electric cooking is the leading productive use, or I can say the leading value chain of all the value chains that we are going to consider when we do the upgrades. From the previous slides, you would see that our mini grids were ranging from 6 kilowatt peak to 25. But going forward now, they will be of 40 kilowatt peak to 90 kilowatt peak. And this is also has been contributed by the application of electric cooking in our mini grid portfolio. Thanks a lot. This is all I was able to prepare and share with you today. Dr. Will, back to you.
Thank you very much, Prosper. That was great. Really great to hear your perspectives, and really exciting to hear about your developments of eCooking for Power Hut. So that's great. Thank you very much. Harry,
Yes.
shall I hand back to you for the Q&A?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our expert, for your brilliant presentation. We had some concrete examples from players on the field in Haiti and in Tanzania. I think it's very useful for our community to know that eCooking is not a dream, it's concrete, and you can save money, you can use this appliance for your needs in your household. About on the Q&A, we have some comments and question about the presentation. No problem. We can share with you the slides, and as I said before, so you can have also, we can share with you also the link for registration. For example, as question, we have one question from Stuart Crane about if 1 kV transformer is considered as a retrofit fix to solve upgrade issues for existing grids where cooking was not envisioned as a load. Yes, I think you find it at the chat. No, not the chat. Q&A. Where is Q&A? Yes. Maybe Mr. Mrs. Stewart, if you can explain your question. You are still here? Yes. Allow me to read the question. Where 1 kV transformers considered as a retrofit fix to solve upgrade issues for existing grids where cooking was not envisioned as a load, far cheaper than upgrading conductors. I think it's you would talk about the size of the existing mini grid, and if you want to add some appliance, if I think the question is about if you are allowed to add some appliance.
Harry, perhaps if I can jump in there.
Yes, maybe
Yeah.
I suggest him to take this question and to chat with him after the event. Another question is about from Elodie Half. You talk about time of use. The time of use tariff sounds great, but from what I know, in many countries, for example, in Benin, Senegal, the price of electricity is fixed for at least 2 years and cannot change according to usage or time of day. Have you studied a business case in such country? Have you studied case for in a country who the price of electricity is fixed in your Cosmo study case, country study case?
Yeah, thanks, Harry. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. I see Alison's got her hand up. Alison, have you got a perspective on time of use tariffs?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use time of use tariffs in Haiti. It's absolutely, remember the 4 legs of the stool? It's technology, business case and finance, legal and regulatory environment, and the anthropology of what people want to do and use how they want to use the system. For us, we do have a capped cost per kilowatt hour. However, the way that we were able to negotiate with the regulator is that it's the average cost per kilowatt hour. So we are able to do time of use pricing and more sophisticated. We haven't done more sophisticated sort of demand management programming where people can get an even lower tariff most of the time if they specifically opt into these demand management days. But that's where things need to go from my perspective. And a lot of it is like regulator education and advocacy.
Of course, it depends of the regulators aspect. Prosper, you have some comment for that?
Yes. Thank you so much. So it's true, even in Tanzania, prices are approved and most of the time are fixed, but the day use tariff is most of the time lower than the approved tariff. So if you are charging anything low than the approved tariff, then that is not a problem. It will be a problem if you are charging more than the approved tariff. So in many cases, the day use tariff will be low, and then there'll be no problem to charge that. And for the question on whether for the upgrades, maybe a transformer was used. Actually, for us, for the upgrades, will only increase the size of the inverter and also the storage, plus the generation asset, the PV panels. This is a low voltage system. We are not considering adding up transformers. We only increase the size of the inverters, storage, and also the generation assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Prosper. From Fernando de Quadra, in the examples shown today, the mini-grid generation sites seem to not to have a diesel generator. I think that performance and convenience could be highly improved at little environmental cost, statistically speaking. I think all mini-grid are hybrid with diesel and solar, but you have the expert, you have Alison and Prosper, you can explain.
Yeah, I'll say that's what we thought too in 2012 when we were designing our first grid. And that's why we do have diesel for our existing grids. Our experience in Haiti, and every country is different, but our actual experience is that those kilowatt hours that are the diesel generated kilowatt hours are astronomically expensive or impossible to achieve for much of our operation period, simply because the diesel supply chain is extremely complex where we're working. So again, none of our future grids in Haiti will be sized to incorporate any diesel. It's just too risky and ultimately too expensive. I'll put a little video in our shared chat about it, but it is standard practice that diesel drives down cost. It's not our experience.
Okay.
Yeah, I fully agree with Alison. Even for us, as we've been operating smaller PV capacity mini grids, we have been running diesel genset as well, but it is really expensive to do that. So in all our future mini grids, we are not going to incorporate gensets. It will be 100% solar.
Thank you so much. Another question from Andozo Ilje. Sorry for the pronunciation. It's about the pay-as-you-go basis subject. If you can deploy mini-grid and eCooking services to students, for example, at the university, with pay-as-you-go basis systems. The question goes to both to Dr. Will and Alison.
So specifically for students and universities, we don't have any specific tariff, but nearly all of our customers are on a prepay basis. We have a few very large customers like the telecommunications companies that are on postpay, but everyone else on our grids already is on a prepay basis.
From another question from Hagos. In my country, Ethiopia, we have only one mine grid. 85% is sourced from hydropower, but the price of tariff is increasing each 3 months. As you know, Ethiopia have above 120 million people. 80% of this is using biomass later. And climate is also from your experience. How can we make mini grids in Ethiopia with a large country? I think the question goes to maybe Will or Alison. Oh, Will maybe. I think, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, one of the things that we're going to be talking about in a few weeks is the next webinar is specifically on financing for mini grids. Alison, do you have anything to add to that?
Advocacy. I mean, I think we've been doing this in Haiti for the last 15 years now. I think proving what is possible was one thing that helped us unlock the sector in Haiti. It's very important to demonstrate what's possible. I just Googled Ethiopian mini grids. It looks like there's a World Bank program. So figuring out what exists and how to build off of that experience. Sometimes these things go wrong. So how to recover from that experience could also be important. But if you can't finance them, you can't build them. And financing could come from a grant source that's very excited about proving what is possible in your sector so that you can then build the buy-in from the regulatory and community stakeholders.
Thank you. We got another question from Stuart Crane again about rainy days. What happens when it's when we are on rainy season and with no back diesel generators? Do you have any situation, any examples in Haiti or in Tanzania?
Yeah, I'll say, Stuart, that's our 9 days. That's what we've modeled, is that it actually only is 9 days of demand management. And, interestingly, we thought that the 9 days would be sort of stacked, 3 or 4 on top of each other, because sometimes you do get, extended clouds. According to our modeling, and we'll be smarter when we do this in practice, but according to our modeling, the 9 days are actually spread out throughout the year, which is interesting. But demand management is essential if you don't have backup.
Okay. In Tanzania, do you have any example?
Yes, actually it is the same. Yeah, just demand side management. And currently we are piloting an automatic demand side management system. And if it goes successfully, I think that is what we are going to be using. So demand side management is all we can do when there's no backup generators.
Okay. Thank you. Another question Thanks from Fernando. Thanks, of course, it's country dependent, but many countries, I believe, that huge battery much more expensive than genset. I think the cost of batteries is universal because it's made by factories, and with transportation we can pay it in Africa, but of course it's cost expensive. Of course, London set, yes, of course. Question from Lilian: how do we only take 9 days off, yet it might be cloudy? At least 19 days a year, of course. Yes. Next question. You still have a few minutes left. Maybe allow me to. You have also some comment from WWF. I'm delighted to read everyone's interest in the topic. Yes, I'll be even happier to if this webinar creates partnership. For example, if is WWF working on these topics and looking to open up collaborations. Today, Dr. Anna Clements shared with me some initiatives. Ongoing initiatives on clean cooking, and I hope that, for example, WWF can join these activities. I talk about WWF in Madagascar. So thank you, Dane Copper and his team to join us today. Another comment from yes, Alison.
Oh, I just wanted to respond to Lillian's question about how do you only take 9 days off if it could be cloudy 90 days of a year. It's very site specific. And also we have a lot of solar, and solar generates energy even in cloudy days. So those two things I think are the answer. User experience will be different. Modeling will be different for different sites.
Yes, thank you. From Fernando, it's a technical aspect. I guess that for eCooking curtailment, you need separate electric circuits and meters or remote control. Is it true?
Prosper and I were just chatting about what controls we're using on the side chat. Well, we use Spark meters that already have built-in demand management and time of use capabilities. For our initial pilot with the MECS program, we had dedicated meters for each cooking appliance because we wanted to get really granular data. Obviously, from a business model perspective, incurring additional hardware and installation costs is not ideal. So for our future grids, we're planning on just having everything downstream under the standard meters that we currently use. Prosper, do you want to talk about your tech?
Yes, actually, it is almost the same. We also use Spark meter at every customer point. The e-cookers we are using, they have also an inbuilt meter as well, so we can access mostly usage information for each user. But in future, yes, we are currently piloting a particular new concept of demand side management. So if successfully, maybe in future, that is what we are going to use.
Thank you, Prosper and Alison. A few more minutes. Question, comments, remarks? Yes. If not, I would like to thank the panelists and participants again. Thank you very much for your engagement, and I think we can follow up this event by chat, by emails, and for all participants, feel free to type to Claudia if you have any question, and I will connect you with all experts for your for their comment and response. So thank you so much, and nice to meet you anywhere in the world. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks a lot.